We're live.
Sure.
We're live.
Oh. Are we ready? Are we ready, Sarah?
Yes.
We are?
Yes.
And I want to thank everyone for coming today. We're going to call to order the Pine Hills Land Authority meeting of October 9th. We'll start the meeting with roll call. I am here. Mr. Nigro is not. Allison?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
Alejandra?
Present.
Jasmine?
Here.
Danielle?
Here.
We have 6 members. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes review of September 11th, 2025. Are there any comments, changes, corrections to the minutes anyone would like to speak to? Hearing none, I would ask for a resolution to approve the minutes. Allison? Sarah, thank you. Call a vote on approval of the minutes. Mr. Boyce, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, approved. Next item is our CFO report. Amy?
Good morning, everyone. I'll be starting on page 9 of the balance sheet, year-to-date August financials. Cash in the bank is $115,000. Total current assets are 4.7. Of that is the $4 million that we have in the Wilmington Trust debt reserve, and roughly $600,000 in prepaid expenses, which is the remainder of the insurance policy on the buildings. Total fixed assets, $34.6 million, which are all the fixed assets net of depreciation. Moving down to liabilities, we have $120,000 in accounts payable. These include payments due for utilities, repair and maintenance, consulting. Long-term liabilities, of course, are the $40.4 million that we owe in the bonds. Is there any questions on the balance sheet? And then on to page 10 is the P&L. Total income year-to-date is $1.9 million. Of that, the majority is the expense reimbursement from the Albany County. We have $77,000 in interest and dividends and $6,000 in rental income. I do want to mention that Joe Deloya has been working very hard and doing a lot of tours around the campus for future events and rentals. So I think we're looking at roughly $15,000 that we have booked from now until November. Moving down to expenses, large items are the bond issuance costs of $861,000, insurance $626,000. Total payroll year to date is $470,000. As I mentioned, Joe has done a great job in reducing the amount of overtime and while still making sure that we have the adequate security staff to patrol the campus. Our next large item is, of course, utilities of $419,000, which, as was mentioned in the finance committee, we will be looking to bring on a consultant and reach out to National Grid to see if we could get those costs down. And then the last line item is depreciation of the buildings of $608,000. Are there any questions? Thank you.
The next item under the 3B is the approval of the annual budget. We previously had a discussion. Thank you, Chairman and Chairperson. And pages 11 and 13 represent the resolution that we prepared by our council. First of all, I'd ask for a resolution to move the approval of the budget. Alejandro, second. Jasmine. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this does require a roll call vote. So I will take the roll call vote. I am voting yes. Mr. Nigro is not here. Allison Walsh,
Yes.
Sarah Rosanelli,
Yes.
Jasmine Higgins, Danielle Melendez,
Yes.
and Ollie Hunt. Resolution passes. Next item on the agenda is our CEO report. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Happy fall. We're here in the Carondelet Symposium Center on a beautiful fall day, and this is probably one of the nicest meeting rooms on the campus. This is a building for which our consultants have been getting some real interest in, so we'll see how that all plays out. One thing I'd just like to, I ran into an old colleague in the higher education field, and he was commending, the county executive on the creation of the authority. And I said, well, why do you think that's so special? And he said, he went on to talk about what happened at the College of New Rochelle and Dowling College on Long Island. And they, in his words, they were unmitigated disasters. They were left empty. They just declined and decayed. And in case of Dowling College, it still isn't redeveloped from what he told me. And that's 5-10 years at least. So, the fact that the county created this authority, which all of you have been great stewards of, and then taking that next step to populate these buildings, to get live people back in these buildings. And, as the consultants tell you, human breath being breathed in these buildings is a tremendous stabilizing force, not only for the real estate here, but for this entire neighborhood in our city and our county as well. So, we can't, sometimes we get into the day-to-day of this, we kind of lose sight of that larger, bigger, more impactful effect of what was happened with the county executive's creation of the authority. So staff have been very busy on the campus. CPL and Margaret Irwin's group have been doing great work. We've had now 2 out of the 3 community meetings so far. And I think that by and large, they've been very successul. We've got very active input. I think we've had between 200 and 300 people at each one of the meetings. Not just people attending, but real interaction, and that's thankful to the work of our consultants for organizing these meetings in that fashion and getting the word out effectively and really engaging people. We got great ideas, and there was good energy at both of these sessions. I know many of you were there. Staff also attended the Upper Madison Street Fair Sunday before last. Dylan Turk from the Alliance staff, along with Rebecca Kiefer from CPL, did a great job manning the booth. I stopped over there. Booth was very active. People are, again, really interested in what's happening here, but in a constructive way. People aren't saying, good so-and-so is trying to do this. That this is really constructive. With the possible exception of John Wall.
The pushy guy.
Thankful. Good intentions.
He said.
So we've got our final community meeting on October 29th. That is going to be a little bit of a different format. Margaret and Rick and Matt will talk a little bit about that. Again, that will not be in the Lowry building. That we're planning so far to have it over in the Mastery building because of the type of meeting. I'll let them talk about that. So with that, why don't I introduce, turn this over to Rick and Matt and Margaret to give us an update, and he just needs a few minutes. Rick, you got to put your computer up.
I'll start talking.
Oh, okay, good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Henry, Matt Smullen, and Margaret Irwin from our consulting group have been doing some great work here in a very compressed time schedule. You know, we're on schedule to have this report done by the end of November. I know every time Matt hears that, he kind of tenses up a little bit, but.
No, now we're at the point where it's really starting to come together. A lot of the parts and pieces are coming together that are starting to formulate, you know, what we bring to you as concepts and a final report. So I'll start with the condition assessments. We put a different spin on the building conditions assessments because there's the building conditions, of course, which I think last time I mentioned, we've taken thousands of photos. We've been in most of the buildings and seen the elements that we're rating. But then in advance of the last public meeting, we started to try to wrap our heads around something different. We had this idea of a heat map, which incorporates not just the building condition, but the potential for the adaptability and or reuse of each of the buildings, and then the community values of the buildings as well. So we pulled that together for the meeting.
Hey, Matt, 1 second.
Sure.
For any of you sitting on the periphery there, if you want to move up and look at the screen, there is a slide that CPL has up. It's
So
Feel free to move your chairs if you want to come over here.
sorry.
Not necessarily, chairs come here.
So what this is helping us to formulate and wrap our heads around is, you know, where there's tremendous value and where there's maybe some things that don't have as much value, and without going through every building. The two extremes would be, on the upper extreme is the event center, which has the condition of that building is very good. The adaptability and reuse is obviously, you know, turnkey, ready to turn into a community and event center. And then the community value. There's obviously community value to having something, you know, there. So that's the building number 27. That's the dark green shade. You know, very high value in all three factors there. On the flip side of that, Lima Hall and Alumni Hall, the two older dorm-style buildings, the condition relatively fair to poor of the actual condition. Adaptability and reuse of those buildings is very challenging. Low floor-to-floor heights, interior masonry walls, chopped up. You know, the plumbing is on either end of the building.
Matt, you want to just point out where those are for everybody?
Sure, 14 and 15 are the ones that are in sort of darker orange on the interior of the building, or on the interior of the map. And then community value. There's not much community value in those buildings either. On the interior of the campus, you know, so that's what sort of makes those the sort of least desirable to be really incorporated into the master plan or the concepts that we put together. So then you have in the building number 4. I'll go into a couple more. Building number 42, Centennial Hall. Interest there potentially as reuse as a dorm building in higher education. And then in sort of the interior of the campus where you've got the Mastery Center, you've got the building that we're in now, Lima Hall. Some of the core educational buildings have, you know, very good condition, good potential for reuse, and they have community value. So what we start to formulate as concepts are going to center around those, and then we start to fill in the parts and pieces of what happens with the houses and their potential. So that's coming together, and I think that transitions over to where you can talk about where we're moving with this.
So we have, in addition to, we have a lot of things going on. We're finishing up the assessments of the buildings. There were a couple buildings that we weren't able to access in the last couple of weeks, but we're getting access to them now, so that's all being handled. We continue to meet with developers. So I think we've met with 10. We have 2 more to go. And the developers, the public, the county executive, the county legislature, the Pine Hills Land Authority, we're assembling all of those comments and we're incorporating them into the draft. I'm gonna call it a draft. It's gonna stay a draft for a while until everyone has a chance to comment on it. A draft final report. This is the general outline of the report. We are behind the scenes, the people that aren't here from CPL. We have a large team working on this right now and working on text, working on how to present this plan. And the plan is going to have several options to it. So how to present this plan to the authority. So that's all being handled. It's going to be there's going to be a draft final report by the end of October, and I'll let Margaret speak to what we're going to do at the public meeting. So I assume you guys can read, but we'll have the basics of a report. The most important thing in the report will be options and recommendations. So we have received a lot of input on this so far. So we need to weave all that together into a plan that works for everybody. And it's a challenge, but I think we have the makings of some good options here. And we're not ready to present them yet, so we will present them soon, but not yet. The other thing that we are working on is the basic format. So this is going to be it's maybe too much in the weeds, but I'd like to talk about what the report is actually going to what's going to constitute the report. It'll be either an 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17 landscape view bound on the side, so that we can have some bigger pictures and a lot more visual than text. We don't want just a 50-page report that has a lot of words to it. So we're going to have a lot of pictures and a lot of visual enhancements to this. This is basically the outline here. Let me see. So this will be the acknowledgement table of contents page, but this is the basic layout. You can see the words on the sides. They're not really words, they're just letters pushed together. But I've sent this to staff for their review and input, so that I want to make sure that the format is right before we get into writing the report. And so this is the format we anticipate using. We're still working through that with staff. I'm sure we'll have some comments on that. So this will be generally the way it looks, and we're estimating. We don't know exactly how big it's going to be, but probably around 50 pages, 50, 60 pages. Then all of the background information will be available in a appendix or appendices. We're probably not going to make a ton of hard copies of those, but we will make at least some. And all of this appendix material will be all the background information, all the community input, all of the building assessments. For the building assessments that Matt referenced, I think we've taken 7,000 pictures. So there's a cover sheet, there's floor plans, there's pictures, there's an assessment to every one of those buildings. We're going to include all that. It's just not going to be it's going to be part of the report, but at the end, so we don't gum up the works and bury the lead, so to speak. So we are that's the format that we intend to use. And we're actively working towards getting that done by the end of October. In April. Yes,
Is that what's gonna live on a portal?
that's gonna live on a portal. Yep. Yep, it's gonna live on a portal, and we'll have hard copies, obviously. But
Yes.
yes, it'll live on a portal.
That's very good.
I'm gonna let Margaret speak for a few minutes about the next public meeting, which is the 29th.
Thanks, everybody. As Kevin said, we've had very good turnout at the first two meetings, and we're going to shoot for a larger turnout for the final meeting, which is what we expect. In light of that, it's our recommendation with CPL that we change the venue from this building to the Masry building, simply because it's larger and can accommodate more people. And this will be the first real opportunity for CPL and the authority to announce the findings. So it will be a presentation, and the Masry building really lends itself to that. We are going to use, we're recommending that we use an approach where when people come in, they get index cards and pen. And if they have questions as the presentation goes on, they'll write them down and then pass them to the aisle where we'll collect them. We'll take a short break, and then we'll read the questions. We'll group those that are duplicative, and we'll read them for answer by whoever's appropriate. This is a way to ensure that the most questions get answered, and it is a very typical approach for a large size meeting. Without it, a meeting can easily be derailed by a couple of commenters, and we don't want that to happen because people have been very involved and they have expressed hundreds of ideas, many of them things we weren't seeing, we weren't thinking of, that they saw. So we want the meeting to accommodate the most people possible and the most ideas possible. Coming off of the second workshop, the best news from my perspective is that there is alignment emerging between what people are saying in public meetings and on the survey and through the website, what CRESA is finding in terms of market opportunities for the campus and particular buildings and uses, and what CPL is finding in terms of the condition of properties and infrastructure. That's what we would hope for, and that is starting to happen. And the place to really nail that is on the 29th. So I would encourage everybody, if you have ideas for how we could do outreach in addition to what we have done in the past, we welcome them. If you can be there, that would be wonderful. I think that this will be important momentum moving into the next phase of implementation of the recommendations. Happy to take any questions, and we will be shortly posting the input from the second meeting on the website.
Right, thank you, Morgan. Nick, any
No,
comments?
I have been probably driving you crazy, privately.
Not at all.
But I would encourage any member of the board who has a specific concern about an area or in general to contact Matt, his project manager, and get yourself to them, set up a time to sit down. If there's areas of specific concern that you have as a board member that you may want to give thoughts and ideas on, or find out really what's in the plan or what's being developed before it's presented. I would ask any of you to do that. I personally have been doing that, and they're probably glad to see me not there today. But my area of concern is, is alumni association, what we're going to do with the alumni. We have a commitment to do something there, and the homes. I mean, the big buildings, they're wonderful. We have ideas, but the housing is an area that I have concerns with, that, hope we can develop those and bring families and things into the neighborhood, and that kind of thing. So I thank you because, you're always available. You make yourselves available, and I would encourage any board members who have that concern to get a hold of CPL and work on it. So
Before
look
we
forward to the,
Yeah, so,
go ahead.
before we let go, Rick or Matt or Margaret, why don't you give the board a little sense of some of those, kind of areas that people have expressed interest in, and some of the ones that we hadn't originally thought about that, you've seen so far.
Yeah, the main areas of interest are senior housing, the reuse of the rec center as some kind of community center. There's a lot of interest in some what I'll call first floor retail. That could be food and beverage, but I'll just loosely call that retail. They really are interested in activating the quad green space into more of a public space, because right now it was set up as a campus and it looked inward, and we'd like that to be more of a public space. And some of the options that we're looking at activate that space. And I'm trying to think if there's any other major things.
How about the healthcare?
Oh, the arts.
Yeah, we had a recent
Yes.
development with some healthcare, interest in healthcare, specifically educational relative to healthcare from one of the, a larger healthcare company. And I think that fits in, has the potential to fit in well with some of the potential municipal use, and some of the tie-in even with Albany Med, potentially even, or SUNY Albany, I'm sorry. And then potentially Hudson Valley as well. Have heard a lot about the arts.
Yes.
The concern there is the economics behind the arts, okay? Is there's interest, but, is there economic support for it? So one of the conversations is potentially a future RFP for, operation of the Mastery Center, So that's one of the things that we're gonna dive into a little bit, is the economics behind supporting the arts.
We also heard a great deal about the need for childcare
Right.
in and around the neighborhood, for primary health care, as well as other supportive services offices, and for recreation, like a YMCA, not putting the YMCA on the table. And I think there's also been interest from the school district about locating some of their uses closer to the core of the city than where they are currently now, which I think is out close to the Waterloo man's line. So some of those are very consistent with each other and consistent with this remaining of living neighborhood, and potentially able to benefit residents further by increasing services.
Great, thank you. Any board members have any questions, comments? Allison?
I just wanted to kind of echo what Nick was saying a little bit about the houses around the perimeter. Anytime I talk to anybody about this, the number one question I get is what's happening to the houses? Are any being demolished? What's happening to the kind of sightline of the neighborhood? So I'm not asking you to answer that now, but I think that's a question that you should be able to answer, or at least, frame it in a way that can be answered at that meeting. And, just making sure that that's being addressed kind of sensitively. I think that's a big concern.
I think overall housing is the biggest source of comments that we get. Everything from senior housing to affordable housing to owner-occupied housing, with a concern that housing and families and people living on campus activates the site 24/7, 365, which is the hope that, as Kevin said, an empty facility degrades, but so does one that closes down at 5 o'clock. And
I just went last week on a tour of maybe half the houses, spent some time, and I personally believe there's a great potential there. Again, the condition, I feel, of the some that I went through, the condition was not that bad. And, a little bit of, rehabilitation to those houses, and if we price them correctly, we could attract, hopefully some, families to those houses. And some are in poor condition, but many are in pretty good condition. And with a little bit of, where we could get a housing organization or some grant money, and we can attract families to those. The other potential I think we have with those is senior housing. we're close to hospitals, you can walk to a grocery store, we need to get a pharmacy, and then hopefully we can maybe attract some of those houses, professional offices, the dentist office, the medical, those kinds of things that families need. But it's a very walkable community, you're close to a hospital, close to a grocery store, and I think it could be very attractive. And from someone who's owned some property in the past, I would not be scared away from redeveloping some of those houses. They were redone for students, that's understood. But some are in pretty good condition, in my opinion. And even if they do the multiplication, based upon reasonable pricing that's going on in the real estate market today in the area, we could go a long ways towards reducing that $35 million that we owe.
One of the things that we talked about relative to that was to be strategic about if you're gonna put housing on the market, is to be strategic about maybe putting them in clusters. So if you
Yes,
take a cluster at a
that's what we
time,
talked about.
like we talked about. I think that's great, because then you can see, first thing is you don't create an oversupply and then drive the price down because there's so much supply.
I would absolutely agree 100% with that approach.
That's part of what we're gonna incorporate into our strategy that helps to sort of formulate
But I think, as Allison pointed out, I mean, the major buildings, they are what they are. And there's potential for the houses. I believe there's potential there to do some good stuff and create a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, and you can see it come together in a sequence.
In segments, it would be a good, start out and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Any other comments from any of the board members? Sarah, Jasmine? Okay, if that's it. We'll move on to our next item. Thank you, folks. Great work. At this point, I'd like to introduce our general counsel, Tom Owen, who's going to talk about an amendment to our temporary license agreement. Tom?
Sure, thank you. Kevin, Chair, board members, and other guests. Before you and in your package today is a resolution for a third amendment to the existing license that we have with the county.
Page 14.
Yeah, I'm sorry, page 14 of your package. And it really comprises the rest of the package. Sorry about that, but there's a short form EAF as well, environmental assessment form, and then there's an appraisal that was done as part of this potential amendment. So I'll just walk you through very quickly, and this is the third such amendment. We've had the original license in March, which was the EAC. We added some space in May and again in September. This is, less than a 10% add. It's basically, I think it's about 5,600 feet of space, and it comprises what's known as the Interfaith Center, the former College of St. Rose Interfaith Center Sanctuary. Thank you. And so, the resolution talks about how we got to be established, the authority. It talks about the powers of the authority. It talks about the specific sections of the legislation that provide the authority with the powers and the purposes that allow us to consider and then potentially approve the original licenses and now this amendment. It talks about the space affected, as we've talked about, and it goes into the specifics about the particular rationale as to why the authority would consider this. Again, a lot of this has been talked about previously. It's a temporary license in the sense that it's cancelable within 30 days. There is no consideration. The county does provide indemnification protection to us and provides insurance. So we are named additional insured on the insurance. So it is what I would consider a normal business terms, with the exception of the consideration, which is zero. However, as the controller has skillfully detailed, the county is paying everything for this authority already. And so therefore, there's a rationale as to why the consideration is what it is. And then there's some required provisions under the public authority law that are included on page 17 and 18. There's two things that this resolution does. One is the secret determination that there's no significant effect on the environment, and two is the actual authorization of the CEO and the chair to basically deal with the county in the amending this third amendment, executing the third amendment on behalf of the authority. Those are the two actions within the resolution that you would be approving today. And so, subject to any questions or anything, I'll stop there.
What's the proposed use?
I'm sorry.
What's the proposed use?
The county is going to be funding a position within county government to coordinate, and I don't really have the exact detail, but to coordinate a interfaith coalition to be represented here in the interfaith sanctuary. I know, which is exactly what the building was used for when it was in use at the college.
So at this meeting today, we will just be voting on the authorization of you going into, agreement with the county.
Right.
But then at the next meeting, the county will be present to kind of give more of those details, and then we will be able to make a final decision.
Well, this is just to amend the temporary occupancy agreement. So what we're doing is we're granting the county temporary occupancy of the interfaith sanctuary for this purpose. And, we'll see what happens, down the line. I don't know what the county's long-term plans are for this building.
And I'm just curious, before when we granted temporary use, the county had a representative here to kind of go through and explain the purpose. So is there a reason they're not here today?
That's probably.
The county is here.
Oh, hi.
The county attorney is here. Hi. I'm Cia Gudis from the county executive's office. So yeah, we're just looking to add this building to the temporary use agreement, as Mr. Owens has indicated. We're looking for like a community engagement, community outreach. The plan hasn't been fully developed, but our interest is to open it up and to be able to do a program that existed before, which was an interfaith bringing community together. And at this point in time, we're looking just for the temporary use of the building. So.
And will the use of the building be in right away, or it's kind of down the line? Just for that.
I'm sorry, Danielle.
I would like to-
Will the use of the building start right away or down the line?
Well, we have to affect the agreement, but I think it's pretty, I think they want to get something started relatively quickly.
Yeah, the amendment, as soon as the amendment's executed, that would obviously provide the authority for the county to use the facility. Again, it has to be in accordance with laws, all regulations, they provide insurance, indemnification protection. So, but it would allow the county to begin to use it. They already have, 6, this is the 7th such
We've
space
extended
that
this
they'd be
license
allowed to
before
use.
for the other uses, and like the other instances, when their internal conversations of being able to move staffing and organize, then they do. But certainly, we're just voting on the authorization for them to be allowed to be in the building. So whatever that is, but this is now, an extension of this that we've given to the other side.
Any further discussion? I would ask for someone to move the resolution to amend the agreement. Alan? Jasmine? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote. I am a yes. Mr. Nigro is absent. Allison Walsh?
Yes.
Sarah Reginald?
Yes.
Jasmine Higgins?
Yes.
Danielle?
Yes.
Moses?
Yes.
Yes. And Autumn?
Yes.
Yes. Resolution passes 6-0, 1 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anything else, Mr. Chair? I don't want to, I'd like to, it's not on the agenda, I apologize, but
I won't let you talk.
We've got, many of you know our bond counselor, Joe Scott, who was the brains behind the issuance of $40 million. I guess you could also say he's the guy who got us into this mess. But what I've asked Joe to do is just to give the board an update on some of the procedures and questions, and feel free to ask Joe about what happens with revenues coming into the authority and our requirement to pay down the debt with any revenues that are generated. So with that, Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin indicated, he thought it would be helpful for me to attend today just to talk a little bit about the process. And I will try not to get into the weeds, the process of the application of any sale proceeds in connection with the sale of properties on the campus. And I guess the way to look at it, stepping back for a second, is that you have a number of parallel paths here. We've got the redevelopment plan, we've got consideration of sale of parcels, and then the last piece, or the last parallel path, is what do you do with the money when you get the money in connection with the sale of portions of the campus. Well, as a refresh to what I talked to you about when we were in the steps of closing the transaction, there were two major structural issues that we hammered on in connection with the sale of bonds. One was no mortgage on the facility. So all of these properties are free and clear of any kind of encumbrance. And therefore, and the purpose of that obviously was to accommodate an expeditious and efficient and quick and cost-effective, I'm running out of adjectives here, conveyancing of the property. The second piece was in concert with the county, who is backstopping in effect our debt, is when we get the money, we provide for, as quickly as possible, a pay down of the bonds. And that's hardwired into the documents and is a big part of, obviously, the transaction. So what will happen is when we get the money, and one of the side benefits here is that, and this is something that Kevin was, as your CEO, was very concerned about, was, well, the authority is going to be incurring costs in connection with the conveyance of these properties. So is there a way to recoup some of those costs in connection with the conveyance of the properties? And we've hardwired that into the documents also. So at a 50,000 foot level, what essentially happens is you'll get the money will be deposited with the trustee, we'll then work through a closing cost certificate that is delivered to the trustee. Monies then drop out to the authority to represent a reimbursement of those closing costs. And then the balance of the money then moves to the holder to pay down the bonds. And that's all, like I said, hardwired into the documents. They're fairly tight timeframes, 10 days for this, no more than 10 days for this, no more than 5 days for that, with the intention of making sure the money gets applied as quickly as possible, because it benefits both the authority and it benefits the county to have that debt paid down as quickly as possible. We don't want money sitting in a fund and interest continuing to accrue on that outstanding principal balance. The last piece that I'll talk to you about is what's a little unusual, and this was another negotiation point with respect to the financing team and the authority and the county, was what happens when those bonds, when a portion of the bonds get paid down. If you're familiar with typical financings, what routinely happens is that when a lump sum payment is made, that payment is applied to the back end of the principal. So there's no change in your annual, monthly, or whatever quarterly payment. Here, we engineered a much different scenario where the holder is obligated, the bank, is obligated to redo the amortization statement and table so that that annual payment drops when you get a pay down of the bonds. That benefits both the authority, that benefits the county, And that, again, was something that we negotiated hard with the financing team in order to achieve that. So, my recommendation to Tom as your general counsel is that as we move along these parallel paths, I'm at the age where I don't like good surprises or bad surprises. What my recommendation to you as my client is that as we move along the process, we notify the trustee, we notify the holder, we notify the county, the other operative parties, that something is coming down the pipe and that this is the process, and then have the documents ready to go, and then be working with Amy and Kevin and Tom on, things like closing costs, so that we're ready to go as soon as we get the money, and then the money's wired in, there's a few procedural steps, and then wired out. So that's a very brief and 50,000-foot summary of what the documents are, but it reflects all the work that you did and your finance team did in connection with the original financing of the bond.
Great,
That
thank you,
will
Joe.
be
Any questions?
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, any questions or comments for Joe? I know this is kind of inside stuff, but this is important that we all understand how this works and that we follow this very carefully.
While you're thinking, and I apologize, I didn't completely look at my notes as I was talking here. There is one other point that I want to make clear, and that is the proceeds that you get from sales of all or a portion of the project facility. Project facility is a defined term in the bond documents. It's the land, and we have Mr. Goldman here who worked hard on the land description, and then the buildings and the equipment that were financed with the bond proceeds. So if you have a building or equipment that wasn't financed with the bond proceeds, and that hard asset is conveyed, that's outside the trap, if you will, or the capture provided for by the documents. And again, we'll work through with Tom and as need be Paul as those issues arise. But that's another point that I wanted to make to you at a 50,000-foot level.
Yeah, and that's a very important distinction, because as you recall, we did pay, the county paid $150,000 or so for all of the FF&E, all the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment on the campus. So that was not funded by bond proceeds. So as we liquidate or give that furniture or equipment away, that will not be covered under this bond pay down. Joe, just one other clarifying question. This would also include if the authority decided they wanted to rent some of this property out, those proceeds from those leases would also have to be applied to the bonds, right? Not just the sale.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All revenues.
Yeah.
No, that was that clarification was right.
What is the impact of, if we were to rent to private sector, the taxable status of the bonds? Would that impact?
It will have a significant impact, and we discussed that at the last meeting, Chair.
I wasn't here.
Right, and I know you weren't here, and I was
I
was actually expecting questions
50,000
from
yes.
you at that meeting, because I know that you're familiar with that issue. As we discussed then, any private use of the facility triggers a potential tax impact on the bonds. The bonds are issued as tax exempt under the federal tax law, and private use creates a potential violation of those rules. And what we did as part of your policy was to make sure that we were all, staff and council and the board members, were sensitive to that issue. And we also provided a subset of safe harbors and distributed those to, for instance, the county, to give the county some guidance with respect to their potential sublease or subuse agreements with respect to the site. But post-closing private use of a governmentally financed facility creates a tax issue.
Did we want to mention disposition of equipment at this point?
There's not much to the point, just.
Okay.
Thank you. I put our vote, Chairman.
Okay. I'm just wondering, is there any other business to be brought before the board? Hearing none, I'm wondering if we would want to do public comment on the executive
Yeah,
session.
that's
I would, at this point, put the executive session later in the agenda, because there are members of the public here, and I don't want to have them have to stand in the hallway for 45 minutes or an hour, depending on how long it takes. So I would move to go to the public comment section of the meeting and ask for anyone, a member of the public who would like to make a comment, just please identify yourself and speak to the board.
I'll start this time. I'm Margie Skinner, I live in the neighborhood, and I've spoken the last couple of times, but I have three things that I want to mention today. One is to the board members. I know some of you, I've met some of you, I don't know all of you, but I know you were appointed, and when I read your bios, I was really impressed that all of you have backgrounds that connect to this. But I have a question about that in terms of your real estate connections and your project connections. I know there's a conflict of interest form that you had to sign, and two things. I want to make sure that you're not conflicted. And I also want to make sure that your input, because I think we've got a lot of input, but you guys, you have so much input. Sarah, I know you as a planner. Jasmine, you've got a project going on. Alejandro, I think you're the one that's done prison redoing, or one of you, that's Allison. That's Ally, okay, that's you. Danielle lives here, and as we do, and Alejandro, you live here too. So I just want all of that, I want to benefit from all you've done, that you're a board, but you're affected too, as much as any of us are. And I don't want you to be conflicted in terms of economic things. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I hope that you all read Jane Gottlieb's article in Bloomberg Magazine. Did you see that? She did a lot of research on other places, and I think one of you just mentioned now the film possibilities, that one of the places in the Southwest, I think, is now a film center. John will bring this up too, but the resources we have here, the Mastery building and the Hearst building and the equipment we have, plus all the action that's going on now. Paul Rondell did an article a week or two ago about all the film stuff that has happened. Anybody that watched Gilded Age, you know, we're it. And so I want I just want to make sure that you read that if anybody didn't read it. And then the third thing is, it was brought up first time, is how do we know what's going on? When St. Rose was here, you know, I lived 3 blocks away. I never knew when there was a concert at the Mastery or things like that. I want people to know. Somebody gave me a card, I can find out the yoga thing when we were at the meeting a week or two ago. People said, what's going on with these buildings? John's taken yoga classes, but nobody knows about the yoga classes or everything else. So I think that we need to reach the community. We try it as a neighborhood association, and I'm really speaking for myself. I'm not on a board. I haven't been an official neighborhood association person for years, but I think to reach the community, one thing occurred to me. I live in Seattle every so often. I really live here, but my daughter's in Seattle and we have a place there. When things are happening there are signs on the street that show you what's happening, what's going on. We have empty storefronts here. We could use either the Dunkin' Donuts or the Mastery, if the next meeting's at the Mastery, maybe that, or the CVS, to show the wonderful slides and things that you've done on each building, that overview of the buildings and the building by building. So the people on the street who don't know, don't read the newspapers, sorry, they're stuck in their whatevers, but they're walking down the street going to Price Chopper, they'll visually see every day what's going on and know that the next meeting is coming up where the whole thing will be put together, but I find going to the website and clicking on a building and reading that stuff and saying what I think is a pain. I can't do it, and there's 90 buildings to look at, or 70 buildings or something. But if we could have that overview on the wall at Dunkin' Donuts or on the wall at the Mastery, I think, unfortunately, Dunkin' Donuts is where people walk in. The Mastery not these days so much, but if we could reach the people on the street, you're getting 300-400 people making comments, but there's 100,000 people in Albany. So we need to reach, and even in Pine Hills, there's 20,000, something like that, is the population in the neighborhood. So we need to let the people on the street know what we're doing, what you're doing, and what we're doing. So those are my 3 things, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak at each of these meetings.
I can unless you want to.
Usual suspects.
My name is Virginia Hammer. I was at the last meeting, I read out a letter. And we appreciate your desire and your need, our need to have those buildings occupied. So we're very happy about that. We're happy that you want to repay the bonds. Obviously, it's to the good of all our taxpayers and put property back on the tax rolls. But to that end, if you still have an offer in front of you about the sale of 5 properties to the county. What I want to know, and I think you may want to know, is why? I mean, what does the county want to do with those buildings? We can understand some of that, the Western Avenue buildings, but I don't understand why the county needs to buy that beautiful building at 1000 Madison Avenue. What is the county going to do with that? And how will that benefit county residents? I just don't see the connection there. And I think that as the taxpayers and the public, I think you owe it to yourselves to, when you consider selling the property at lower than its assessed value, what is the plan? What is the vision? What is the goal? How does that fit in with what the consultants are finding out about what people want? And I think, it's a simple question that has a lot of repercussions. Are people going to be moved from other county offices into those buildings? If the sheriff is going to have one room in the Hertha building, we don't even know what he's going to do, or if he's going to move in there. What happens to the rest of the building? Can that be better and higher use by having it just go on the market? People buy it, goes back on the rolls, campus is occupied. I just don't get it. I don't also get the cost that it would take to move county employees into these buildings, which we know that is sort of part of the plan. The county wants to sell 112 State Street. Where are those people going to go? And how will that affect, what the purpose is of your purpose in making sure that these buildings are put to the best and highest purpose. So before you sell anything, I would really appreciate it if there was more transparency. Right now, the public doesn't know anything. They don't know why the county wants the Hearst Center. I don't know why they want the administration building. I don't know why they want any of these other buildings. Because even though they are said to be put to use for the recreation building, we don't know anything else about it. Will the pool be open to the public? That building is so big. What else is it going to be used for? Is there any plan for that, any vision? And that's what I'm imploring you to think about as you consider selling these buildings. Thank you.
I guess I will go. Wow, a lot of comments. Sure. I am John Wallner, Pine Hills resident, and as Kevin pointed out earlier, the pushy guy who goes to every meeting. I'm happy to have that designation. It helps you guys to do your job, because you all know, if everyone around this table knows, I'm a huge fan of what the county executive is doing. We're in so much better position compared with other schools because of this work. I intended to get up here and repeat one important word that I think we can do even a better job at to get to the result. I've been trying to get this into the consultants. I've been working hard and briefing them on opportunities. But for me, it's a bit, I call it collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And the consultant has done an excellent job, especially the neighborhood consultant has done an excellent job of getting in things. And I understand the press has done an excellent job of getting things for certain buildings. But when we talk about the Mastery Center or about what the county executive tries to do with a film production company or a music production company or a video game production company over here, we need collaborators. So huge praise here goes to you, Mr. Chairman, for making the initial contact with wonderful Mike Brophy, the head of ACPHLA Community College. He's the type of collaborator that we can do a lot more with to really improve the consultant's report. I've been talking with him and with the county executive about this, and the key is we need to have much more of this kind of collaboration. And perhaps he can help to lead a group that would connect us with some of the other college presidents and programs that could do things. That would support Mastery, but it also could support the kinds of businesses that could fill in this movie cluster or whatever it is that the county executive is talking about. So that's the collaborate. And then there's, and thank you to whoever talked about the process for figuring out the Mastery Center. I'm very happy, Mr. Chairman, for your commitment to that, the board's commitment to that. I know that it's a follow-on thing. The consultants told me they've had the conversations I've set up, but they can't do much within this time frame to do that. The other thing I want to do is I want to thank the neighborhood people who've been coming here, because I think they let us know what it is we might be missing. So instead of collaborate there, what I'm hearing is we need to communicate. I've been talking with Ali Roberts, who runs the yoga program, and will run the pool and all the other things, about how to reach the city. And so she's connected with the neighborhood. The Pine Hills neighborhood has been helping her spread the word and connecting with other neighborhoods. So this communication, I think, can really help, because what the county is doing there already is what the people want. I know some more about the vision for the interface center. So, I know that's going to be a good thing. But we do need to find a way to do a better job of sharing those things. So I will help Ali with the yoga and that kind of thing to reach more people. But we think about, as a staff, I think, how we can better get those things out there, because there's a lot of wonderful stuff. So I will stop. I could go on for a long time, and I have in the past. But collaborate, communicate. The good work that you're doing already. Thanks, guys.
Any other members of the public?
Hi, I'm Susan Rizzo, Albany County Controller. First, I'd like to compliment, County Executive Hoy, Chairman Kevin O'Connor. It's a great vision that we're actually taking care of and creating this authority. I agree with Mr. Mazza about his comments about aging and senior housing. I compliment CPO, I guess that's an acronym. But I want to make sure they spoke to the Commissioner of Aging with Albany County. We're close to the north. I don't even know if everybody knows what the north is. It's the naturally occurring retirement community. And there's plenty of benefits there that what we can do with the aging. I think some of it's been considered, but I think talking to the Commissioner of Aging is very important, as well as she's also part of the Interfaith Alliance, which I'm a member of, that I think I'm happy to see the amendment that was done. I think that's a big add for St. Rose. As far as the arts are concerned, I agree with the arts. As far as we need to review grant opportunities. Grants are huge for the arts. They give $1 million to City of Albany to put lights on in the vacant buildings. It was a big upset because they thought they could use that $1 million for the abandoned buildings versus just an art program. But I think in order to have arts, somebody needs to be part of the grant program to seek these grants. Albany County is potentially purchasing the athletic building. That's a very expensive situation. I know that when Albany County buys these buildings, the debt gets reduced and we're paying for it. So we have to come up with the money. I'm still looking to see where's the money coming from. But I appreciate that when there's notice, that I get a certified letter, because I got an email, and somebody would say to me, we sent you an email. Well, I get hundreds a day. I see that the people that were certified, letters went to Hasty and the state controller, but I'm staying in the weeds. So I just want to make sure I get notified, because there's good things you guys are doing. I just want to make sure I'm prepared on the Albany County side to make sure we know, because we're putting a lot of this bill, and the authority gets the benefit because we reduced the note. I don't disagree with that. It was smart, financing, but we pay for it. It's in the interest rate as far as doing an interest only, 100% pay down, fine. But as Joe Scott indicated, he's no longer my bond counsel, so to answer my questions, I have engaged bond counsel. Now we have a new bond counsel that I have to run this by them also to understand is taxable or non-taxable, because it's important that we might be smart on the county side as far as if we buy a building to prevent the taxable, non-taxable trigger, that if we sold the building afterwards to somebody like a YMCA to take care of this athletic center. Might not be the YMCA, but for us to be managing an athletic center with the high costs, I think that we'd maybe be able to supplement, but I think the county needs to be prepared to realize this is a big endeavor for them, because it's not the authority that's taking care of the costs, it's us. As far as the comprehensive plan, I understand, I've been part of development, for 30 years, and I understand about transparency. It's really about when is the board going to be more transparent to the community. I know that you have a lot of legwork. I know that you had a lot of meetings. I think that's all great. And I think there is going to be a time where you're going to let us know the more specifics. I understand why you can't, but I do want to make sure some people like the Commissioner of Aging, don't leave that out. That's huge to know what is the aging need and be able to articulate that. I think we have a lot of good people that realize that that's coming, and then you match aging with children, and I think it's a big win-win. I think that's it for my comments. I'm concerned, obviously, about Albany County to make sure I understand how this is all going to work. So I appreciate anything that I can get ahead of time would be beneficial. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ken Steer, I'm a resident here. And I apologize, I did want to make longer comments, but my printer's out I decided to go on the Fritz today, so I'll just, I'm not a digital native, so I don't know how to edit from here. But I have a couple comments. I guess mainly, first of all, I'm impressed to see this whole process. And, but I'm still, I wish I had more confidence that this was going to result in the best possible reincarnation. And I think it's important to keep in mind that it should be a reincarnation that's worthy of, the saintly mission that the sisters had, educating women for over 100 years. And the reason I'm not so, I wish I had more confidence, is the more terrestrial or earthly motivations here. I think it's pretty obvious to all of us that in this reimagining process, the really decisive reimaginer is not here. It's someone else, and who seems to prefer working behind a curtain of some kind. And what I wonder is the overall vision of that person. Frankly, I doubt there is one. Granted, my first exposure, I'm a relatively new resident, was to the county executive, was the airport fiasco. One of the most, can I be frank, harebrained moves I've ever seen a politician do. So is that telling? Maybe. So of course, the process of devising a vision is the task of the consultants, and who are tapping into the community and doing a pretty good job, I think. But what did the decider do? What has he revealed about how he's participating in this? First of all, to begin with, as far as I hear, he opposed the creation of this authority. He also said, consultants, heck, what do we need them for? So this bespeaks to me of confidence or hubris of being in office very long. So laying claim to 5 key buildings without articulating clearly how essential they are to the better functioning of the county, or more importantly, to the enhancement of the neighborhood. Not done, right? Seniors services, of course, is one exception. This is kind of, I would say, a form of bigfooting that makes a lot of us uncomfortable. I could say, I've heard many times, if the county didn't step in, what a mess this place would be. That's all fine. We all know that, we all appreciate that, but you should also know that this is precisely what we expect of leaders, right? Especially those that have ample funds, good credit rating, et cetera, et cetera. So enough backslapping, please. And when you raise this, the next sentence, usually from officials involved in this, is a bit of a flash of steel, right? That the county's in the driver's seat. Basically, we're the big dog, and we're gonna decide. When push comes to shove, we're gonna decide. So, and we can smell that. And basically, every week, it seems, we catch wind of more plans for county officials, county employees to move here. Just 112 State Street apparently seems to be on its way to converting into having its own reincarnation to apartments. I don't know how well, if that's widely public. I think there's 600 employees there, and they're all coming here. So we certainly understand the urge to come here. We're generally welcoming, but a mass migration, no. Just the other day, I happened to come across an interview with Dan in the Albany Business Review where he let drop that the entire county inventory, building inventory, has been quietly put on the market. That's a little worrisome. That was back in February, by the way. So that's why, getting the vision thing is important. And if, Frank, yeah, I'm not.
Sir, could you?
Yeah, I'm gonna get there, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
If Dan thinks his vision is so great, let's hear it. That's basically what I would say. And let's hear how it's being coordinated with the state's own consultants.